Hi, this is Runa, and you're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools, and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello, darling listeners. This is Runa here one more time with a new guest at the Changemakers podcast. This time, a very special person that is coming from US of A. And here I am in my little office in Iceland having another conversation with a changemaker that is changing the world with an amazing work when it has to do with leadership, team building, and being yourself. Tim, welcome. You know what? I hesitated here because I thought, I'm not quite sure how I pronounce this last night.
Well, it's Pecoraro. And, well, listen, I didn't try to guess yours. I saw yours, and I went online because I'm fascinated by cultures. And I was looking it up, and I was like, what is the proper pronunciation of her last name?
Yeah, well, there's another story to this one. You know, there is a reason why I call myself Runa Magnus. Actually, that is to simplify things. Because my name is Magnus' daughter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And this is not a right way to start the podcast here, me talking about myself and not
no, it's okay.
That I'm interviewing. But for those that are not familiar with the Icelandic naming system, our naming system is quite unique. My dad's first name is Magnus.
Okay.
And daughter in the end means that I'm daughter of Magnus. And my brother, he is Magnus' son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, Tim, what's your father's first name?
My father's first name is Pablo. And
Pablo? Yeah. So you would be Tim, Pablo's son.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And we can also be our mother's first name and then daughter or son if we want to.
Well, that'd be interesting. My mom's first name is Sherry.
Yeah. So you would be Tim, Sherry's daughter.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to start using that because I love cultures and I love names because my last name, Pecoraro, which is Pecor, comes from the original from Italy, and its background is shepherds. There were sheep people. And which is interesting. In my first name, Timoteo, or, it means biblically for me is a Christian name as it's one who honors God.
Oh, wow. So to our listeners, could you ever imagine what sort of a person we have with us today that has a name, has this full meaning that is related really to our topic? This has to do with being authentic, how to grow your team, and how to become the leader that you want to be. So, Tim, first of all, already, was that me or you?
I don't know. You left off with, for the listeners, have you, could you imagine what kind of person? And then it was frozen.
Okay.
No problem.
Continue.
Okay.
This is so interesting. You know what? When things like this happen and you're actually in the middle of the recording session and you're thinking, oh my God, now I have to start all over again. But you know what? I'm not, because this is life.
It's life. Yeah.
And yeah, you can say shit happens, but
yeah.
It happened. The only thing that happened was that we got cut off. So
yeah.
So just let's be who we say that we are, being authentic and vulnerable and the whole lot, and just continue.
Yes.
What I wanted to go into was really about your story and how did you get hung up with leadership and team building? What happened in your life?
Well, in my life, I tell people I'm more like an Alexander Hamilton and an interesting character because no one could really trace his bloodline. And this is a hilarious thing. Like in my area here, I do a lot of work with nonprofits. I help a lot of, so a lot of the money that I would make with my companies, I would, use that extra money to be able to do a lot of pro bono work. So I would do extraordinary things for nonprofits for like the MLK Dream Weekend, for Miracle Hill, for the Kroc Center, the Salvation Army, and just other movements. And so I would be able to invest a lot and use those, profits to pay people still to be able to give them the same extraordinary service that you could to a paying client, someone that had the deep pockets, because they have extraordinary vision. They just are limited in resource. And so for me, I've always had this deep passion for the underdogs and people who seem to be in the most need or have the most want. But I don't want them to stay there. I want to be able to see lives get elevated. So back to Alexander Hamilton, this bloodline thing. I recently was invited to join in with what they call minority business owner, because I am straight up minority. I have so many cultures inside of me. If I was a flag, you would never fly me over your house. Because it would be chaos. It would be a cacophony of colors and chaos. Okay, like it would be ridiculous and undiscernible.
Hey,
and
Tim, I'm the creator of No More Boxes, so you're
this is perfect. Yeah,
you're perfect. Yeah,
and I love that, because for me, that's where I've always lived. It's where I fit.
yeah.
So where I was invited to be into this, and so this kind of gives, and I promise I'll take you back to like the beginning and how I fell in love. But I'm so much like that in my family, the history is divorce, people crossing culture, illegitimate children, people who know who their fathers are, but then they don't. Some people have been told this is their father, and it really wasn't their father. So I have a history of that goes way back, okay? And I did a deep study over it, and I wondered ever since I was a little kid, I was always just curious. I was fascinated by people. I really didn't care. I loved culture difference. I learned the languages. I got around different people, and I was just the kid that could blend with everyone. So my first superpower was being a chameleon. Wow. And so I could change color, Yeah. But then something happened to me as I got a little bit older. I started realizing something. It was nice to borrow color for a little while, but when am I going to put color back? And so that was like my Alexander Hamilton moment for myself. Is I was already a guy that didn't like boxes. I didn't want to be stuck. I didn't want someone to tell me what to do. Yeah. I wanted to be led. I wanted someone to tell me how much they cared. Could they actually help me? And could I trust them? And so I would find a big void and absence there. And I lacked leadership in my life. And my mother was incredible, worked so many jobs because I have 4 siblings in total. But before my mom was remarried and my younger siblings came into be, it was just myself and my older brother. And my mom's uncles were like, they were terrors. I mean, they were something growing up. And my mom actually was the one raising even her siblings. And so it was a challenge, but I didn't have the leadership because my mom was always working. And so I found myself on wrong roads. Of course, I tried everything. And, one of the reasons I tell people I'll never run for public office is because I'd have to start out by saying, okay, if you can name it, I probably did it. So before you go digging up anything.
Maybe you should run for public office. It would be a change for someone to come and say, okay, it's okay. Before you Google me, this is what you're going to find.
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah.
So in that process of growing and learning, Runa, it was important for me that I wanted to find someone that would be willing to come close to me and teach me and instruct me and guide me, and be willing to work with my curves and my edges and my abrasiveness to know when to apply rough sandpaper and when to apply the smooth sandpaper. And it was a long time that something happened when I realized that I needed to stop being just a chameleon. It was okay temporarily to be able to just blend with any culture, but it was time for me to stop segmenting myself and dividing myself and partitioning myself and tap into this potential, this extraordinary young man that was growing up, this kid that had all this vision and curiosity. And to not just say that this is not available to me, but to say, instead of like letting life happen to me, how can I happen to the world? How can I do it responsibly? How can I do it in a way that I can bring joy to other people's lives, that I can surprise and delight them? And I did run into a gentleman as such. He's still in my life today. He's in his late 70s, and he put his arms around me, loved me at where I was after going through a lot of difficult things in my life. And he just told me, he said, look, we're nothing alike, but we both need the same thing. And I said, what's that? He said, to live out our self-worth and our value, to make a difference and make changes in this world, and to help other people do the same. And he spent time with me, and that's where my road to what I call people discovery was. I tell people I wasn't lost; I was just undiscovered.
Yeah. Well, that's another way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah. And so he helped me with that, and that's where I just fell in love with. I would always find myself leading something. I would always find myself even within the group leading. I would find myself understanding the value of, even though I had an authority, that leadership was influence, that I could influence people and let it be their idea. That's fine, as long as it's making progress. I learned the difference between influence, how it's used for the good, and how you can use influence to manipulate. And I discovered that it was more valuable, obviously, to influence for the good, instead of just getting my way. Because here's the thing I discovered is that getting things to be done my way is going to be a very lonely place in the long run. I'm going to be alone and I'm going to be isolated. But if I can get them done where it is equitable for everyone, that we all can share in the value, I realized that one is too small of a number to see any significant joy or accomplishment. And so put the influence to work, whether you're in charge or not, and then see communities change. See, like even in organizations, when I go in, I tell them that, there's a saying for the fire department here, a clean truck is a happy truck. And I tell the people in the companies, you know what I mean? A company full of people with presence and that they have their value, they know who they are, and they bring the full person to work. That's going to put a smile on the organization, and your competitive advantage is going to be a healthy organization. Apply that to communities, apply that to your home, apply that anywhere.
Yeah, I love that. You talk about that you made yourself the promise to be the leader. Sounds to me like that is a huge step, to promise yourself something. When you were there in that time of your time and place in your own life, that you made yourself the promise that that's what you're going to do. What was the biggest challenge for you to stick to that promise?
Well, I think it was the fact that I had heard all my life that you're kind of predisposed to be what your environment was. That's what your future is. I was told, my box. Like I was basically told I was either going to go to prison or I'd be dead or something, or I'd, be a useless individual.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's a fixed mindset. One of my favorite books is by Carol S. Dweck, and it's called, it's about mindset. And she opens up very strongly about fixed mindset, like this is your personality, this is your IQ, and here you are. Mm-hmm. Or growth mindset is, hey, wait a second, I can develop my emotional intelligence. I can understand what real presence is. And even though this book wasn't written at that time, I realized the buck stopped with me, that I'm not going to be defined by all of those things. Yeah. That, I was sexually abused as a child. I had been through a lot of physical, some that maybe were my own bringing on myself, but I'm talking, violent acts of things and around a lot of trouble, a lot of drugs, alcohol, things like that. And what I realized was, wow, I'm literally making those things stronger than my potential. And that's when I said, instead of me trying to break a habit, I'm going to create habits that I want to spend the rest of my life trying not to break.
Oh, I love that. So that, breaking a habit, because that when you're focusing on, I'm going to break that habit rather than I'm creating a new habit.
Right.
That's a shift.
Yes, it is. And that's when I realized that I had the ability to rewire the way I think. Ultimately, that's going to impact and change the trajectory of my future, and I can own my outcome. And it doesn't matter if it goes exactly the way I wanted it to. It was my thinking, my feelings, my decisions, my actions, and it's my outcome. And that changed everything for me once I started to implement that as my daily habit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is that saying that it changing, or like you're mentioning, it's starting a new habit that you intentionally put your focus on a day-to-day basis is changing your story. Because what I'm hearing is your story that might have, if you would have kept yourself in that box, that would have been pretty isolating and limiting box, I think. Whether it's with your new habit, you changed your story.
Absolutely, because we're the ones writing it. And here's the thing, maybe the pages before may have been, they may have sucked and then maybe pretty shitty. But what's nice about it is, here's what I tell people, nothing listens better than a blank piece of paper. The question is, what are you going to write on it?
Mm.
And, and that's what I want people to understand is like, you're writing the greatest story ever told. Nobody else. You know what I mean? You have think old fashioned, and I'm such a word picture person. I love visuals and stuff. And so, think of it, it's your ink and it's your quill that you're dipping in. And you know what? And stop thinking about hitting delete and backspace and drawing lines through stuff. Just write. You know, there was a time when we didn't have the advantage. Those guys had to sit and write on papers and write and write and write. And they kept going until they knew it was something that was, you know, they were willing to now show the world. And then that's when they knew the language. I mean, there was no room for error. You know what I mean? Like you keep working with it. So here's the thing. Stop focusing on what's not going right. Stop focusing on what you can't do, what you don't have, and start looking at what you can do, what you do have, and what is going right. And start writing from that place. Change the way you're doing introspection. Instead of sitting there, why is this wrong? Why is this broken? Why is my family like this? Why are my finances this way? Why don't you start more with what? What can I do differently? It's what, not why. Get into more of the what part of things. You know, why is when you're trying to figure out your purpose. If you find your why, you can go to your what. What should I do? If you go to your what, then you can go, how can I do it? But when it comes to you and doing introspection, stop with all the why stuff and turning yourself into a victim. Go what, not why, so that you can start writing a little bit more about what can I do to change. Move yourself forward. What can I do to improve upon this? What can I do to develop? And if I could say something really quick, Runa, I love what the box illustration. I use this statement for myself all the time. I teach this to kids, and I talk obviously to adults a lot about it. But there's a difference between craving and hunger. And most of us don't know what that is. You know, most of us, because we have the luxuries. You know, we crave a piece of chocolate, you know, after something like, well, this would be great to have a piece of chocolate. I've been craving chocolate, right? But see, the thing is, that's like the Turkish delight in C.S. Lewis stuff, you know, where you throw that in the box. And what people are doing is we keep ourselves in the box because we're eating cravings instead of understanding hunger, because hunger will be satisfied outside of the box.
I love that. So you need to find your hunger.
Yes.
To leave your box.
That's correct. What do you desire? And I'm talking the deep thing that feeds you. A true meal gives you nutrients. You know, so if a person's gluten-free, they know what it does to them. If a person knows that they have to have protein, they understand. So you have to go to it. It's not about it coming to you. You've got to move first. You want to do something, make the move. So here's the thing. Stop chewing on the craving in the box. In other words, munching on Doritos and snack foods of vision, and realize that the real meal is out there, but you've got to hunter-gather it, and you've got to prepare it. You're going to have to do something to go after the better meal. So put a demand on that. The demand goes on your desire. Don't put the demand on other people. Don't put the demand on, you know, some lottery ticket or some magical thing happening. You know, listen, get on the cause side of things and not just the effect. If you stay in the box, you'll live your life according to effect. If you get out of the box and pursue hunger, you are the one causing things.
You know what, Tim? Those last words were absolutely perfect to end this podcast. Beautiful. Thank you for being you and being part of the change makers in this world, sharing your gift so that other people can be changed as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. And if there's any way I can serve your community, let me know.
We have all the show notes. We will have your website and how to connect with you, Tim. Ooh, we need more of Tims in this world. Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runamagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in your world.